Fred VanVleet just called out the NBA for the officiating that's been going on this season, but there's one specific stat that you may not know about that prompted this outburst. Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? It's Jacob here with Amateur Hour Sports. On this channel, I do news coverage, reactions, and analysis all about the Toronto Raptors. So if you like what you see from today's video, then make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Help me on my road to 14,000 subs, and drop a like if you find yourself enjoying along the way. Fred VanVleet yesterday made headlines around the NBA for the way he sounded off in an expletive-ridden tirade going against the NBA and its officiating crews throughout this season. And this is really compounded based on the last couple of nights for the Raptors. Mainly, a few nights ago when the Raptors played against the Denver Nuggets, and that game made headlines all around the NBA for the way Scott Foster officiated against the Raptors and a little bit against Scottie Barnes in that game, where the Raptors were afforded really no opportunity to win the game whatsoever. As the game came down in the stretch, a one-possession game, multiple calls went the way of the Denver Nuggets, and nothing went the way of the Toronto Raptors, and it was just a game, a classic game from Scott Foster, where he knew he had the power to decide the outcome of the game, and he did. It was a little bit of a power trip situation for Scott Foster, and that was especially apparent when he gave Scottie Barnes a technical just for talking to himself, and also ejected Scottie Barnes from the game after only receiving one technical. Now, I understand that bad calls happen. I understand that referees can make mistakes, but this was a conscious decision from Scott Foster to make that decision against Scottie Barnes. Number one, to give him the technical, which was a key free throw in the game, and also to eject him from the game. This was willfully going beyond the rules of the game and the rules of the officiating crew and how they are supposed to manage the games. It took the power of the game out of the player's hands and placed it in his own hands. And it was definitely a situation that was a little bit of a power trip for Scott Foster. That was plain for everybody to see. And the frustration really folded over into Wednesday night's game against the Los Angeles Clippers, where the Raptors just simply did not play well in this game. And Fred VanVleet in this press conference even cited the fact that the reason the Raptors lost was not about the officiating, it was about the way they played. They got outplayed, they did not play very well, but the officiating made it a lot more difficult on the Raptors to get back into this game. And even though the Clippers seemed to have control through lots of this game, there were points where the Raptors made it one-possession games, and the officials were able to suck all the momentum and all the life out of proceedings and really spin the tide in the favor of the Los Angeles Clippers. And this is directly what Fred VanVleet was referencing in the game as it comes to a technical that was given to him, which he said was something that really shifted the dynamic of the game and changed the kind of mentality the Raptors had in a game where they were fighting really hard to get back into it, because the Raptors and their standings in the NBA, every win is going to be significant to their playoff seeding or their play-in tournament seeding. They definitely want to be in the top 8, more preferably in the top 6, but that just doesn't seem like it's going to happen at this point. Every win matters. Every position matters. The Raptors are fighting, and things like this are really taking the sting out of the game. And Fred VanVleet directly goes into the power trip that referees are on. And we saw that specifically with Scott Foster in the Denver game, and everybody saw that. It was very apparent to everybody. But it's just the ability of the NBA officials to wield the power to decide outcomes of games and go on this power trip to take control and make the game about themselves. And that is a problem that we have in the NBA at this current point with these officials that go unpunished in these scenarios. As I mentioned earlier, mistakes happen. You can miss a call. You maybe don't see a call. But to make a conscious decision like Scott Foster did a couple of days ago to give Scottie Barnes that technical and also eject him from the game, well, there's another situation here, and this one applies more so to Ben Taylor, who Fred VanVleet directly called out for his officiating in this game against the Los Angeles Clippers, and there really is something to Fred VanVleet's point here. During this press conference post-game, Fred VanVleet said exactly this. You got other refs who just want to be and just kind of fuck up the game, and no one's coming to see that shit. They come to see the players. I think we're losing a little bit of the fabric of what the NBA is and was, and it's been disappointing this season. You can look it up. Most of my texts this year have been with Ben Taylor officiating. So at a certain point as a player, you feel it's personal, and it's never a good place to be. That's not why we lost tonight. We got outplayed, but it definitely makes it tougher to overcome. And this is the thing about the on-court product of the NBA. This is diminishing the quality of the product on court, because that Denver Raptors game a few nights ago, That was a really good basketball game. Both teams played well. You saw different matchups. You saw both teams trying to tinker the way they played tactically to get the best of their opponent. And it came down to the officiating. That significantly decreased the quality of the product on court. And in this specific scenario with Fred VanVleet as it comes to Ben Taylor, he certainly has a point with this one. Fred VanVleet said you can look it up and see that most of his technicals come in games officiated by Ben Taylor. So that is exactly what I did. I looked it up. Fred VanVleet is leading the Raptors this season with 8 technicals, and he has played in 55 games this season, and only 6 of those games have been officiated by Ben Taylor. Yet still, in just 6 games with Ben Taylor, Fred VanVleet has received 5 technicals across 4 games. One time, he got 2 technicals in the same game and got ejected for the first time in his career. And in those 6 games of those 5 technicals, Ben Taylor has directly given 3 of the technicals to Fred VanVleet. So there's a little bit of merit to this. 5 out of the 8 technicals Fred VanVleet has received so far this season have come in games officiated by Ben Taylor. And of the 55 games he's played this season, they have only occurred in just 6 games with Ben Taylor. As a player for Fred VanVleet, I think it could be really hard to put this past something that is personal. And at this point, it's hard to say that all these things are just coincidence, that Fred VanVleet just acts out in games with Ben Taylor officiating. Because Fred VanVleet himself said yesterday with his technical, he was trying to rally up his guys. He didn't say anything directly to the official. He simply wanted his team to play through everything that was going on as it comes to the officiating, yet he was still given a technical for that. That is going a little bit too far as it comes to the officials. And once again, we can talk about things being personal here, and we can definitely talk about referees and officials in the NBA being on a little bit of a power trip. Fred VanVleet agrees with my sentiments here and was quoted as well to have said this: I think the jurisdiction and the power trip that we've been on this year with some of our officials in this league is getting out of hand. And I'll take my fine for speaking on it. This is ridiculous. And surely Fred VanVleet is going to get fined for speaking on the officials, but I encourage you to go through the entire press conference here. This was really a scenario where Fred VanVleet understood that he was going to get fined, so why not go all the way here? Why say one little thing about the official, still pick up a fine, when you can say everything you want to say and everything that is on your mind here and still get the same fine? As it comes to fines when talking about officials, the NBA has gone in a $15,000 to $35,000 range. I imagine Fred VanVleet is going to be getting the $35,000 fine for this one, but for Fred himself, I'll think that he believes it is more than worth it for what he said, because he got this off his mind, and it really highlighted the fact that Ben Taylor really does seem to have something against Fred VanVleet for whatever reason. 5 technicals in games officiated by Fred VanVleet of the 8 on the entire season, and Ben Taylor has only been the official in 6 games of the 55 that Fred VanVleet has played. There's a lot of coincidence and a lot of weird statistics that comes to sports, but it's really hard to pin this as exactly that, and it's quite easy to say, and it's quite easy to infer here that there's something Ben Taylor has against maybe Fred VanVleet, something against the Raptors here. But that's just a problem as it comes to the NBA, and this is revisiting the point from the previous video a couple of days ago. The NBA is aware of all these things. They're aware of the heinous record Chris Paul has in the playoffs in games officiated by Scott Foster. It's hard to just chalk these things up to coincidences. The NBA is fully aware of these things, but guess what they're going to do about it? Absolutely nothing. All they're going to do in this scenario is fine Fred VanVleet the $35,000 and move on. They're not going to do anything as it comes to the officials. They're not going to do anything to try and punish the officials and make them do a better job. Nothing is going to happen here. And once again, for the third time, I'm going to say, I understand officials make mistakes. I understand they miss some calls. That is fine. It's human error. But when it comes to these sort of decisions that shape the outcome of the basketball games, like giving technicals, ejecting players from a game, these are conscious decisions made by the officials that knowingly are going against the typical protocol of an NBA official and an NBA referee. That is the problem that I have here. Willfully going against your standard protocol here because you're on a power trip, because you want to be the guy making the headlines, because you want to decide the outcome of the game because you can. And I'm really glad that Fred VanVleet called out Ben Taylor specifically by name and didn't just take the vague approach here. Credit to Fred VanVleet. It's tough with the officials being like that, but at the end of the day, as well, as Fred VanVleet also alluded to, the Raptors just have to be better. And they have to be better to a point where the officiating can't dictate the outcome of the game because they are playing so well. Because the reality is, even without the officiating against the Clippers yesterday, the Raptors probably still lose that game because they were really, really bad in that one. Certainly the officiating does not help. I understand that 100%. The Raptors also need to be better, but the NBA itself, as it comes to governing their officials, they need to improve as well. What did you guys make of Fred VanVleet's comments? What did you make of this video? Let me know in the comment section down below. That is it for today's video. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more Raptors content just like this. I do insight, analysis, news coverage, and more. Join the Amateur Hour Army today and help us on the road to 14,000 subscribers.